In this video, we're going to cover scope, and we're going to go over a code traversal of a function and a main program that utilizes pass by value. So scope implies where a variable lives and where it can be accessed. So when we go through this, we'll see that we have x in multiple locations, and we'll have to decide which x it refers to. So the first thing we do is declare a couple variables in main, and so we should set up a spot to record these. And if they're initialized, give them values. Then we can move on to our next line, which utilizes x. And we want to know what's the value at each of these exclamation points. So we hit an exclamation point, our value is 1. Right? So we're keeping track of our values over there, right, that correspond to the exclamation. So the first time we see it, our value is 1. Then we say x is not equal to 0. It's referring back to this x because that is the x that's declared most locally, right? The one that's closest in the set of curly braces. So x's value is 1, not equal to 0 is true. We go in here and declare another int x, right? So we have a separate block inside our if, and we have another x where we set 5. The reason this x doesn't refer to this one is we declare a whole new one, and we have implied curly braces, so it only exists within those curly braces. So as soon as we're done with our if, this one disappears. It is no longer valid. So once again, all x's will refer back to the most local one, which is the only one available now in main. So we see a exclamation, we record our value, 1, then we go to q equals f1 of x, which is a function call, and the value that's returned is assigned into q. So the first thing we have to do is set up our space for our function, and it takes one thing, an integer x, and it is assigned the value, since it's passed by value. This is evaluated 1, that value is passed into f1, so it is assigned the value 1. Now inside here, since we go into a function, we do x equals x times 2, and we have to determine which x that refers to. Now our most local x is the one in f1 that was declared as a function parameter variable. So we do x equals x times 2. So x times 2 is on the right, gets evaluated first, which is the value of 2, 1 times 2, and assigned into x. Now we return x times 2, and we want to record what our x value is here, right? It's a different x than what these were. These were from main, but we want to print it out, so we'll print out 2 for the x value there. And now we say return x times 2. So 2 times 2 is 4, and that replaces our function call. It evaluates to the return value of 4. So 4 is assigned into q. We have to look for our q, our most local q, which happens to be the only q. And we can go on to the next line and says, okay, we want to know the value of x there. Again, we exited the function, so this is no longer valid, just like with our if statement. So our most local x points back to main, and we will record that value again, 1. Now we do this line. It's an assignment of an expression that involves 2 function calls as well as multiplication by x. So since we do order of operations, we're going to do the f1 of x first. So we need a space for f1 of x. So the value of x, the most local, is 1, gets passed to f1. Okay, then we do x times 2 is assigned in. We get 2 again, right? And then we return, we hit an exclamation, we return 2 times 2, and that replaces f1 of x. So this is replaced by 4. Then, since we returned, that's no longer valid. We go here and we say f1 of q. We have to do the same thing. Our variable name is still x, even though we're passing q. We evaluate what q's value is, and then pass by value, so we assign it into there. So our function's f1's x will be q, which is 4. Then we do x equals x times 2. We print out, we hit the exclamation. So we want to return x times 2, which is going to be 16. And this one gets erased. Right? And lastly, we have multiplied by x. Now, x still refers back to our most local x, which is in main. Right? So it refers all the way back to here, 1. So 4 times 16 times 1 is 64. So 64 is assigned into x. And we hit our last exclamation point. So the value of x was updated by this line. And when we hit the exclamation point, we get 64. So here we've gone through an example of how scope can affect which variables we look at and and how we operate in a pass by value function.